Planning Commission meeting to order. Welcome to the July 8th, 2025 Huntington Beach Planning Commission meeting. While the Planning Commission welcomes public involvement and free speech, it rejects comments that are from anyone that are defamatory, discriminatory, or otherwise not protected speech. Those comments will not inform nor be considered by the Planning Commission and may cause the chair, that's me, to interrupt the speaker. Such comments will not be consented or otherwise adopted by the Planning Commission in its discussions and findings for any matter tonight. Thank you. I would like to call on Commissioner Pellman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Pellman. Vice Chair Bush.
Here.
Chair Thenis.
Here.
Commissioner Babineau.
Present.
Commissioner McGee.
Here.
Commissioner Palmer. We have a quorum.
All right. Now is the time for public comments for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Do we have any public comments?
I have currently not received any public comment forms for items that are not on the agenda.
All righty then. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on the appeal of the zoning administrator approval of conditional use permit 24-032 and coastal permit 24-036. Planning commissioners, please state your disclosures regarding this item, and I'll start on my right.
I spoke with Brett Bush.
I, Brett Bush, spoke with Dominic McGee, Brian Thenis, and Councilman Williams.
And I also spoke with Councilman McGee and Mayor Burns.
I spoke with Councilman Twining and took a little tour of the area to familiarize myself.
I toured the area for the Golden West development.
I met with staff and Chair Thenis. That's it.
Okay, staff, may we please have a staff report?
Yes, Wayne Carvalho, Principal Planner, will be giving the staff presentation.
Good evening, Chair Thenis, members of the Commission. Wayne Carvalho, Project Planner for the two hearing items this evening. The first is an appeal of the zoning administrator's approval of a conditional use permit and a coastal development permit to demolish an existing two-story residence shown here and to construct a approximately 7,400 square foot, three-story single-family residence at an overall height of 35 feet with a 682 square foot, three-car garage and balconies on the second and third levels. This is at 16482 Somerset Lane on Gilbert Island in Huntington Harbor. The site is directly across the street from the project the Commission considered last month at 16471 Malden Circle. This lot is 7,200 square feet in size and backs to the harbor. The general plan and zoning on the property are designated for low-density residential, and all uses on the island are single-family homes, which range from single-story to three-story homes. The ZA held a public hearing back on May 21st, where the project was presented for consideration and public testimony was received. Aside from the applicant, there was one person who spoke in opposition, citing potential impacts to his solar panels and questioned the intent of installing fencing and rolling access gates along the front property line. Following the testimony and discussion, the ZA approved the project with findings and modified conditions. An appeal was filed by Mayor Pat Burns, citing that the proposed home was out of scale with the neighborhood and that the project was not consistent with the general plan land use policies pertaining to compatibility and proportion and scale with the surrounding neighborhood. Staff's analysis concludes the proposed development is consistent with the existing neighborhood and complies with all zoning regulations. 3-story homes are permitted in low-density residential districts citywide with approval of a conditional use permit. 35-foot building height is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, which is developed with single-family homes with similar building heights ranging from 25 to 35 feet. Third floor space is integrated within the confines of the second-story roof volume to ensure the residence is compatible in proportion and scale with the surrounding neighborhood. Third floor balconies here would be oriented toward the street and channel in compliance with our zoning code. This is the same aerial map of Gilbert Island and the surrounding area seen at your last meeting, depicting the location of previously approved CUPs for 3 stories or 2-story homes greater than 30 feet in height. The yellow star depicts the project site, you see here, while the purple star, let me give you, purple star here depicts the project you considered last month. Again, to provide some background as to the city's 3rd-story ordinance, back in '92, the council adopted an ordinance to regulate 3rd-story design applicable to single-family in low-density residential districts. Between '86 and the adoption of that ordinance in '92, the zoning code permitted 3 stories without design limitations, subject to approval of a CUP by the Planning Commission. Now, prior to that, 3rd-story construction was allowed by right, but was limited to 30 feet in height. Prior to adopting the 3rd-story ordinance, a Harbor Code Committee was created by the City Council back then to review 3-story construction in Huntington Harbor. The focus of this committee was to review design requirements, taking into account issues of compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. The committee ultimately determined not to prohibit 3rd stories, but to allow them subject to restriction in size, design, and interior use. Such restrictions were intended to minimize the obtrusiveness of 3rd stories and maximize compatibility with surrounding 1- and 2-story homes. The city's current zoning ordinance reflects the committee's effort and the code amendment ultimately adopted by the City Council. This slide depicts an aerial view of the project site and adjacent properties. Both homes directly adjacent had received conditional use permit approval for 3-story homes at a height of 35 feet. The home on the left was approved back in 2002, but was not built out to the full 3 stories. The home on the right, approved in 2003, is a 35-foot, 3-story residence. There are many waterfront lots in the harbor with approved CUPs for 3rd-story habitable areas or rooftop decks up to 35 feet in height. Here are photos of several homes on Gilbert Island and Admiralty Island that reflect varying heights and architectural styles, all between 30 and 35 feet. The home to the right of the project site is seen here on the top center at 16492 Somerset. The project complies with the general plan and all provisions of our zoning code, including building height, setbacks, lot coverage, parking, and landscaping. The project is designed as a 35-foot high, 2-story home with 3rd-story floor area within the confines of the roof volume, which minimizes the massing of the 3-story structure. Here are conceptual elevations that depict roof eaves designed down to the 2nd-story top plate height in compliance with our zoning code. Proposed materials include stucco, tempered glass, standing seam metal roofs. The building design and articulation provides interest and help minimize massing. And as required, the structure is designed as a 2-story with habitable floor area within the roof volume. The Planning Commission may uphold the zoning administrator's approval and approve the CUP and CDP with suggested findings and conditions, finding that the project is consistent with the general plan, consistent with the requirements of the low-density residential-based zoning requirements, as well as compatibility with the existing neighborhood. Or the Planning Commission may take an alternative action to either deny the project with findings or continue the action and direct staff accordingly. That concludes the report. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? I'll start on my right, I guess.
Yes, I handed you this is going back to last month's direction that you gave us in regards to what adjacent or abutting meant, and that we could come up with our own interpretation, if I recall. I handed you a paper from Title 20 of the Zoning Code General Provisions. Would that be more specific than our own? I mean, would we use that in this situation?
You could if you wanted to, but looking at the policy that you highlighted right below it, the one that talks about, this is LU 4D, the one that talks about compatibility in proportion, scale, and character. There's no, it references the surrounding neighborhoods. So it's still kind of open-ended as to what that means to each individual commissioner.
And I guess what I'm trying to do is so that, we're going to be together for 4 years, right?
Yep.
That, we get on the same page. This seems to be what the overall, because these are general provisions. So to me, a general would be to blanket everything, would it not?
You could look at it that way. One is in the zoning code, so you could choose to apply it to a...
Actually, this honestly feels like a little bit of a legal question.
Okay.
The interpretation of the code. So I would love if you would give this question to either me or Mike Vigliota outside public
I
meeting.
just want an answer. I would love, can I give you the provision?
I can tell you that the applicability of the general provisions applies to everywhere in the zoning code except for otherwise provided. So getting into very specifics right now, I'd be a little bit uncomfortable with without getting the question beforehand.
Well, what I was uncomfortable with was coming up with my own interpretation, because I don't create law. I'm just trying to follow the guidelines as set forth. I guess my question is the zoning code general provisions applicable for this scenario? Yes or no? I'm hoping you're going to say yes, because it gives us clarification.
The general provisions are applicable for the entire zoning code except for where otherwise noted. So
Would that be yes?
it'd be a yes in general, but if you want to give me a specific other section, I can give you a full legal analysis. But once again, I'd really prefer to do that before meeting.
Yeah, I'm not trying to play gotcha. I just want to help us come together. So to me, it seemed general is general, and it sounds like you said general is general. So with that, is it okay if I pass out this code section for the rest of the group to look at, commission?
You are allowed to.
Yes.
I'm just letting the rest of the commission know that that is not what I'm saying is the law, what is on that paper. I haven't seen this paper. It's not from city attorney's office. And, but yeah, you are more than welcome to pass it out
It's
to your other
not mine,
commissioners.
it's the city's, so.
Okay, Phil, yep. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And I guess as a follow-up to that, what I'm trying to find out for my own edification, I suppose, until you tell me it's wrong, is that we were told to come up with our own interpretation. I wasn't comfortable with that. And so the way this general abutting adjacent says, having district boundaries or lot lines of combination thereof in common, and then the general provisions go in to define what a district is, because what it was coming down to is we have a project that it has adjacent properties. Some of us were immediate adjacent, where I was more in the district where it seems to be general, that entire island. So that's why the question came up.
Any other questions for staff, commissioners? Commissioner Pellman?
Did you have any questions? Okay.
Okay, I have a question. I didn't see the FAR on this, and it looks pretty dramatic to me. You're saying that this is in the same, is compatible with surrounding, also surrounding properties, but the square footage of this home, the range is much greater. As a matter of fact, the max is nearly 2,000 square feet greater. That doesn't seem exactly compatible to me. But more importantly, I'd like to know the amount of space on the lot, the percentage of the lot that it takes up. From what I'm seeing, these things are not drastically different, but we're getting larger and larger every time we approve something. So eventually, what's compatible is always slightly larger than what was built before, and they are becoming massive. So at any rate, those are my two questions.
Commissioner Pellman?
Is it time to ask about the seawall question? Or is it okay
If
to
it's
ask now?
Technical questions for staff, and then,
Yeah.
we can still discuss that.
Do you want me to do that now or later?
You would ask a question of staff about that condition, yes.
Okay. So I had that concern with the last project. I looked further into how the seawalls fail, and it could be from construction of the seawall, and the seawalls are very old, and going to who's responsible for the seawalls. The HOA is not responsible because it's pretty much in name only. That's what I was told by residents on Gilbert Island. And so that would be like number one. It's not strong enough to withstand the pressure from the ocean and the soil it retains. That would go to construction. Number two, depth of the seawall. You can have failure from not being thick enough or properly composed. Seismic activity, and that goes to the construction that goes on when the project is being built, not necessarily just earthquakes, and the age. And like I said before, I think I said Gilbert Island Bridge, but it was really the Admiralty Island Bridge that's being redone now. And the Gilbert Island Bridge was redone, I believe, in 1994, somewhere around there. So both of them have been done. And so those are issues that back when the Huntington Harbor Island was made, I guess you could say, they had to address all those things with the way the buildings were going to sit on there. And as I understand, I think Chair Thinnis said that those homes are sitting on about 7 foot of clay soil, and then there's water underneath. And so I'm concerned about the weight of the buildings. And that, you know, although you say there's soil engineering, how does that affect that process, you know, of evaluating that? The other thing is that I'm concerned about the adjacent neighbors with the pounding of the soil, going back to seismic activity, that in some instance, there's people claiming on other parts of the island and there in that area that these construction projects are causing cracks in foundations and things of such. So those are my big concerns so far. So thank you, Chair Thinnis.
Any other questions? McGee?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask one thing. Obviously, there's been geological surveys done for this building, and they take into consideration the seawall, right? So, I mean, obviously, their findings are, I would assume, that this is a safe project.
That's correct. Maybe I can take that question first regarding the requirements as part of plan check submittal for the structures themselves. Based on the size of the project, they would be required to submit soils or seismic studies based on the size, scope of the project. So the the studies would determine what the impacts would be to the seawall or anything that went not only toward the seawall, but all four sides of the structure. So the professional engineer's reports would come in. City would obviously review that and determine that if it's sufficient, obviously would approve it. But there's no island-wide or area and harbor-wide study that is being done from that standpoint. So everything's obviously an individual project, private property owner coming in with one lot. So the concern I understand of the eventual failure of seawalls or impacts to abutting properties, eventually they'll have to address that. Yeah, I agree. Whether they get the Army Corps involved with something that large, I don't know. But that's my response to that issue. With respect to Commissioner Palmer's question on FAR, the low-density district here, the RL zoning, does not restrict or have a floor area ratio restriction. So the zoning requirements in the RL district basically establish a building envelope that they could build within with setbacks, building height, site coverage. You can't go over 50% of your lot as a footprint. And with that, that's the building envelope. Whether someone wants to design the home with vaulted ceilings where you're up on the second or third floor and it's open to below and have less square footage, that's their prerogative. So there are homes where they may not want that. They'll have, flat roofs or 10-foot ceilings throughout and try to maximize the floor area. But there is no floor area restriction. Where in other areas there may be you can't exceed 1-to-1 based on your lot size. You can't exceed that much square footage. So just trying to respond to that question.
Commissioner Babineau?
So, I mean, we said that this is consistent with general plan and compatible with neighborhoods for going on 20 years, right? When did the seawall become an issue?
It's really become a question just within the past year. We don't recall hearing about it prior to that.
Is there any way to tell us when some of the other properties of similar size were built? I know, you have a chart or a picture of, the community with the larger homes. Is it too much to ask to know when they were constructed?
Yeah. I don't have all the dates, but probably since the 90s, since we established the third-story ordinance, there were property owners that have come in to either redevelop their single-story or even two-story homes to allow for a third story. They'd have to come in to request a conditional use permit to do that. Some may only want a third-story rooftop deck, so they've come in required to apply for a conditional use permit just to get up to a rooftop deck above the second story. So, and this is the exhibit that kind of shows all of them, kind of in the area. Right. I mean, there's some on Trinidad and Humboldt Island, all Davenport, so it's throughout the harbor.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I mean, obviously, you don't know off the top of your head when those were constructed, but when we look at all the red dots, right, those, are approved 3 stories, what does it say, 4682 to 8396 square feet. So, I mean, similar in size, and, I was just curious when this seawall became an issue, because it seems to be an issue now in the last 2 projects, but having not been on the commission for, more than 6 months, I don't know, the history of seawall questions, right? the structural rigidity or whatever the term might be, so.
Okay. Actually, Commissioner Bush's handout here, I got a question on it. A district boundary would be, it's not a legal question, it's a technical question. A district boundary is, for instance, the boundary between commercial general and RMH or RM. Those are district boundaries, zoning district boundaries, correct? Okay. And then in the land use element, they never use the word abutting. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So they use the word adjacent, right? So lot lines is the line that comprises a lot or a parcel of land, right? Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
I have a comment. You had said that you thought the similar properties were 4682 to 8396 square feet, but that is only in reference to this property. The similar properties are 5320 to 6472, according to your presentation. If you look, similar-sized homes is on the bottom line. So it really is quite a difference, regardless of whether they're using open ceilings or closed ceilings or 10-foot ceilings or 16-foot ceilings. The other comment I have is, as far as the seawalls, I think the question arose more dramatically about a year and a half ago when they did the infrastructure studies. And so I was on the OCC committee. They did a very thorough audit of the entire city infrastructure, and that's one reason why the bridges are being repaired right now. They identified all the seawalls that belong to the city. They're not responsible for the seawalls that are privately owned, but it does have a dramatic impact on the other residents if someone is not able to maintain their seawall. And that's what we learned. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for staff? Okay,
I got
Pillman?
more of a comment. So the soil studies, well, actually, maybe it isn't just a comment. The soil studies and et cetera, the seismic studies and all that, that's just done on the property that's being proposed for the CUP and do all the development and all that. But it doesn't address the adjacent properties. And you can't say that the pounding of, because I've had construction done on my house 3 times. And there's a lot of pounding to the soil and all that. And I'm not on there's no seawall by me. And I can only imagine that if the adjacent properties have issues, it's going to be a problem eventually. And the other thing I learned since the last meeting is that there is quite an issue with seawall integrity up and down the state of California. And the Coastal Commission is dealing with it, like in Half Moon Bay and other places, I think in San Diego County too, and it even popped up in Huntington Beach. So I do think it's fair to question the seawall. And I just it is a concern for me, and I couldn't go forward with, not disclosing my concerns about it. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Just one more comment. The seawall isn't necessarily based on size when it comes to damage, right? It's also material. What if somebody decides to have a Italian marble floor in their house or use sandstone as some element, So I think it's a red herring to be looking at size as opposed to composition.
I'd like to address that. They basically look at the seawalls as far as composition, integrity, pressure, hydrostatic pressure, things of that. So there's all sorts of stuff. Anything that goes to pressure the wall on one side or the other can affect the integrity of the seawall. including seismic, water, soils, and so on. And that's what they've learned up and down the coast. Actually, not only just in California, but in other states that have seawalls and stuff like that. So it's an issue. And as stated in the last Planning Commission, the integrity of the seawalls in Huntington Beach were rated as a D, and I passed out that paper last time. So on an A through F, F is a failure. So anyway, thank you.
Well, I would just assume that we're going to allow building no matter what, right? So the seawall has been taken into consideration with the geological survey that's already been completed. That's just a comment I want to make.
Okay, wait a minute. We're just questions for staff, please. We'll get to a discussion. Any other questions for staff? Okay, with no further questions, we will now open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
We have one speaker signed up for this item, Tim Branoff. If you would please come down to one of the podiums. Thank you.
Hey. Thank you for letting me speak. I just want to say that I know the owner of the property, and I know that he's not building this to flip and sell. He wants to live there. I've seen his projects before. They're beautiful. It would be a beautiful home to look at. And with regard to the size, it's about 600, 700 feet bigger than the adjacent property next door. So it's not that much. It's not dramatic. Okay? And I wanted to address the seawall, because I work in the area and I'm familiar with seawalls. The seawalls are the owner's responsibility. There's no association anymore anyway, so and it was never the association's responsibility or involvement. Typically, it's Coastal Commission gets involved with regards to the seawall. So that's who's going to make sure that its integrity is not compromised. Not you, the Coastal Commission, typically. Other than that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no one else signed up to speak.
Okay, well, if there's no other speakers, we're going to close the public hearing. And planning commissioners, we will now deliberate this item. Let's start on my right with Commissioner McGee.
Well, I just think it's, again, very similar to the project we voted on last month. And I think as long as it's within code, I don't really have any problem with it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, Bush, Commissioner Bush.
When they go to build these structures, obviously they're going to do some type of piles. There's, all the reports done. You're really more concerned with a point load, bearing directly down. More so, you're going to be required to be a certain distance away from that seawall so as to not superimpose a load on that. So I know that from design. That being said, nobody's going to build, obviously, for it to fall down. And the seawalls, I would think everything, including our houses, once you remodel everything, you start over again, right? So they will have to be addressed at some point anyhow. That's true. Is it stop us from approving this project, knowing something going forward is going to have to be remodeled? Then nobody would be able to build, right? The other question or comment I have is in regards to the appeal. In the LU4, it says that continued, providing a range of, and it's on your sheet I gave you guys, providing a range of well-maintained housing types. Continued increases in land values and construction costs inhibit the ability to provide a range of housing types and prices to meet the needs of existing and future residents. This is going to be a future residence, obviously, particularly young family households, seniors, low income, and all of that. It says, as the existing housing stock continues to age, ongoing efforts will be required to ensure it is maintained and does not physically, economically deteriorate. So it won't just be the seawalls that deteriorate, it will be the existing housing stock there. And they're gonna come in and the codes change. You know, I think we're in the 2022. So any of all of the issues you're talking about are being addressed by the architect, by the engineers, by the soils engineers. So you're actually probably going to get a better product than the one that's sitting there now in regards to that, because it's probably going to follow pretty much the same footprint based on the ratios in the presentation. So I'm since we were here last month, this is an overlay. So I know where we're going, but I just thought I would make those comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I looked at the plans, and I'm probably a little bit swayed by the fact that I did see a floor plan come through the city that I think shrunk down the third floor. The last two that this one included, it just maximized the third floor to all end, and I feel like we're pushing the envelope. I mean, when you're exceeding 1.0 of the floor area ratio, that's a huge coverage on a parcel of land. You know, I feel sorry for somebody who loves their little courtyard next door. I know they can't be protected forever, but I just feel like they just push the size of the third floor a little too far on this building. I understand the seawall issue. I think that, you know, hopefully our building department's, you know, dealing with the integrity of the neighboring properties and requiring a competent soils report, you know, analyze the impacts of the weight of the structure. But for me, I think this house is just a little too big. I'd really like to see it. And, you know, if you're under 30 feet or if you're under 2 stories and under 30 feet, you could just get a permit. And so we have this process which requires a zoning administrator approval, which means it's discretionary. And and when I look at the intent of that third floor to be enclosed completely in the roof line, I haven't seen that on these 2 properties. So for me, I feel like it's not following the intent. And I believe that design concept was put into place to prevent a straight up 3-story box from being visible in the neighborhood.
My take on it, it's consistent with the general plan, and it's compatible with some of the neighboring homes, existing neighboring homes. Although I think it's maybe, you know, a little bit too big. I just, you know, I'm going to have a tough time to not allow someone to build on their property with it. We're not looking at any conditional use permits or exemptions to any codes. So, I don't know, nothing further, I guess.
I agree. I believe this property is just too massive, and I think that's a difficult direction to go for our city. But I'm also curious, this isn't a question, but I think we do have CUPs. And I also believe that in this presentation, there was a request for Coastal Commission exemption and CEQA exemption, which would mean to me that we might not get the depth of information that we really need for the seawall or current trends in other areas. We're just looking at who this property belongs to and that they should be allowed to build basically what they want. So for me, I think we're approaching creep where every project is just a little bit bigger and just a little bit bigger and just a little bit taller, a little more mass. Seawalls are crumbling, the bridges are crumbling. I just have a bad feeling about where we're going and think we should pull it back a little bit, be reasonable to the neighbors, and that's my comment.
Commissioner Pellman.
Yeah, thank you. My issue is the aging infrastructure of these homes, and I appreciate the commissioner's comments. But I do believe we are here as commissioners to look at everything and not just to say everything's great. We're supposed to look at it from multiple different angles. And so I basically have a problem with the infrastructure, and I know the Coastal Commission has problems too with a lot of the infrastructure issues on the seawalls. It's evident, it's on the internet, you can look it up, it's there. So, thank you.
Okay, before, if we go back to other questions, I'd like to get a clarification to Commissioner Palmer's statement. We are, this is CEQA exempt, isn't it? There doesn't require a environmental impact report, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And we only need a coastal commission permit if it's appealed, is that correct?
Well, there is a coastal development permit that's part of this request. If whatever action is taken on the coastal development permit, it is appealable to the city council within 10 working days. So any action taken tonight is appealable to the city council within 10 working days.
Right, but it still requires coastal commission approval.
No.
It does not.
That's not correct. Yeah. The city has the authority to grant the coastal development permit at the city level, unless it's appealed to the city coastal commission.
Well, yeah, that's
It's appealable,
what
but
I thought.
if there's no appeal, then the CDP granted here would stand.
And that's the local coastal program or whatever they call it, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's correct, Chair. Just to, clarify, the city does have local jurisdiction over certain properties in the coastal zone, and then the Coastal Commission also has jurisdiction primarily over areas that are over water, like so if someone proposed a deck over the water, that needs to go to Coastal Commission for their authority. So there are areas within the coastal zone that the city has local jurisdiction appealable to the Coastal Commission, but if it doesn't get appealed to the Coastal Commission, the city's final action for a coastal development permit would stand.
Okay. Everybody clear on that?
Okay.
Commissioner Pellman?
I did read on that the Huntington Beach did work with the Coastal Commission on several seawall projects and stuff. So that is evident, that's documented, and so thank you.
Yep. Okay. No other comments? All right. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Since you guys aren't going to make one, I'll make one. I'll make a motion to adopt the findings of the zoning administrator and affirm the approval.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have a vote?
Did the voting screen come up on your iPads? Okay, then let's just call it Commissioner McGee. Just yay or nay, since it's not working. Yay? Okay.
Yay.
Vice Chair Bush?
Yes.
Chair Thenis?
No.
Commissioner Babineau?
Aye.
Commissioner Pellman? Nay. And then Commissioner Palmer?
Pellman.
I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure you got it right.
Palmer?
Palmer said
Palmer, nay.
And Pellman?
no.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so we have a tie.
Okay. Which basically means nothing happens.
So that means that the zoning administrator's action stands.
Right.
All right, so the planning commission's, assuming there are no more motions.
Correct. That motion failed. Are there any other motions that anyone wants to propose before, I guess, we have Ricky read the final language?
All right, the Planning Commission's action on this item is final unless an appeal is filed to the City Council within 10 days. An appeal must include the reasons for the appeal, the required fee, and shall be filed with the City Clerk's office.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a problem with the system. It's a 3-3.
Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing on coastal development permit number 24-018 through 24027. Planning commissioners, please state your disclosures on this item. I'll start on my right.
I spoke with Councilwoman Vandermark and Brett Bush.
I spoke with Planning Commissioner Dominic McGee, and I think I talked to you briefly about it, the chair and Councilman Williams.
And I met with staff, the developer, and Commissioner Babineau.
I had a meeting with Grant and Kenny, who are in charge of the project, I guess, and Chair Thenis.
Nothing to report.
I met with staff and Chair Thinis.
All right, staff, may we please have a staff report?
Yes, Wayne Carvalho, Principal Planner, will be giving the presentation on this item as well.
All right, the second item is a coastal development permit, actually 10 of them. Coastal development permits 24-18 through 24-27. This item was referred by the city's zoning administrator. It's the site's located at 1802 to 1820 Pacific Coast Highway on the inland side of PCH between 18th and 19th Streets. Site consists of 10 25-foot wide lots with access from an alley that runs parallel with PCH. The general plan designation on the property is high-density residential, and the zoning is the Downtown Specific Plan District 4, which is for residential uses. The site was previously used as an oil and gas production facility. The request is to construct three-story single-family homes with rooftop decks on 10 individual lots. There are 4 planned types ranging from approximately 3,400 square feet to 4,000 square feet with 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 to 3 car garages. 4 of the units are designed with ground floor accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, ranging from 412 to 458 square feet. Surrounding uses include single-family residences, a multifamily project across the street, across 19th, real estate business across 18th Street, and the Blufftop Park across PCH. The zoning administrator held a public hearing on June 4th where the project was presented for consideration and public testimony was received. Aside from the applicant, there were 4 people who spoke in opposition, citing the proposed building height and impacts to views, potential parking and traffic impacts, hours of construction, and the existing conditions that happen out there with ongoing construction and people sleeping in cars adjacent to the site. Following the testimony, discussion, and the staff recommendation, the zoning administrator referred the project to the commission, citing the size and the scope of the project. The current zoning allows residential uses from single-family residential up to multifamily uses, up to 30 units per acre. This single-family project is designed to be compatible with existing residential uses and complies with all zoning regulations, including parking and building height. There will be no artificial fill and import of soil to create higher building pads, and the overall height will comply with the city's zoning standards. The city's on-call environmental consultant, SOMAS, conducted an environmental assessment of the project and determined that no significant effects would occur as a result. The project here could be exempted pursuant to CEQA Section 15332, which is often referred to as infill development, provided that the site complies with the general plan and zoning, is no larger than 5 acres in size. There are no endangered, rare, or threatened species. There's no significant effect to traffic, noise, air, or water quality, and that the project can be served by utilities and public services. Here are a couple of the building elevations that depict the architectural design of the project. There will be design elements that are very different, with different front elevations on the street scene from PCH. The applicant proposes to utilize a range of materials: stucco, shingle, composite siding, stone and porcelain accents, as well as standing seam and concrete tile roofs. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the coastal development permits, citing that it's consistent with the general plan and zoning, consistent with our coastal zone overlay and zoning code. The project will be provided with the necessary services and infrastructure. The project will not impede public access, recreation, or views to coastal resources, and incorporates quality materials and architectural design. The Commission could elect to deny the project with findings or continue action while directing staff. Staff has received 9 written correspondence in the last few days in support of the project. You may have received copies of those. They were also uploaded as attachments on the city's website. Staff did receive 1 phone call in opposition, citing impacts to views, but that was the extent of the response from the public notification. So that concludes the staff report. We're available for any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? And we'll start on my right. McGee?
Yeah, I was curious. I believe that there's 3 gas/oil wells that still need to be abandoned. Is that current?
I don't know the exact status of that. The applicant is here and could probably address.
Okay, maybe they'll ask that later. Okay. The other question I had is in regards to the ADUs. I know they're capped at 850, right? 850 square feet, is that right?
The cap as
I
far as the exemption
in general,
would
not
be
to the-
800. So here, the 412 to 458, and those occur, if you look at this, this plan here, the 4 ADUs are the 2 on each end.
Right. The other question I have is there a minimum size to a ADU? The reason I ask is because there's certain guidelines in the housing code that requires rooms to be a certain size. So I just was wondering if there was a minimum.
I'm not aware of a minimum, but like you said, the California Building Code may require a certain size bathroom and
So we'll deal with that
facility.
in plan check. Okay.
Nothing in our zoning code.
So currently, we have 10 existing single-family lots, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so they're building 10 individual single-family homes on these 10 individual single-family lots, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So because of that, they're following RL standards for that. Is that correct?
It's not RL. It's in the downtown specific plan, District 4, which has its own standards.
Okay. So with the downtown specific plan, what would be their maximum density that they could build?
If they elected to build a multifamily project, much like the one across 19th Street, they could get up to 30 units per acre, and this is about a little under an acre. I think they could get 27 or 28 units. Granted, they would have to comply with all the other requirements, the building envelope. The kicker is parking. They'd have to park the 20 some odd units.
Yep. Okay. And then So for the current zoning, is there any discretionary approvals really required for this project?
Just the coastal development permit.
Okay, otherwise it meets code.
Everything else meets.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Palmer?
Okay, so my question again, and I will raise it repeatedly. These are three-story buildings with a rooftop deck, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what I'm seeing is structures on the rooftop deck, which I'm seeing downtown where they claim it's 3 stories, and they put a structure on it, which makes it really, truly 4 stories, or 4 stories, they put a structure on it, and now it's really 5 stories. So is there any restriction to the mass or the structures you can put on a rooftop deck to make it a deck and not a partial story?
The exception, because you're limited to a certain height, and then there's a maximum 42-inch railing, if you will, protection. But the structure that you're referring to, those projections are allowed up to 10 feet for elevators, stairways that come up. So those areas that you see the projection, it's not the entire length of the structure.
No,
it's
but it
just
looks
to
like
allow
half
for
of it.
access, enclosed access up to that rooftop deck.
Okay, so again, it looks like half of the rooftop deck has a mass or structure on it, and I submit that that is literally a 4th story. So maybe they have to have a stairwell and not an elevator if that's how they get an elevator up there, but it is, by all intents and purposes, according to your design document here, 4th story. So I have an issue with that, and I think we need to stay away from that. Rooftop decks should be rooftop decks, but they shouldn't have structures on them.
Commissioner Pillman?
I have a question about, could you walk me through how the site was cleaned up from the oil? I saw that, but I would like to have staff explain that.
As far as the cleanup, I'm going to defer to the applicant who's been working with the state agencies to go through that whole cleanup. I know there's a number of wells. Some of them have been abandoned, some of them have not. So they're currently in the process of abandoning some wells in order to proceed with this development. If I could actually have the applicant address that question.
Okay,
Probably
because
a lot more detailed.
I've lived up on Seacliff where I was next in a home there, and we had to move out of that area because of the methane gas smell. So I'm just wondering if all that's going to be cleaned up, or are you building on top of that? I just would like to understand that.
Sure. There are standard requirements. Our fire department has many specifications that they need to comply with prior to issuance of any grading permit or building permit. So when they submit, they will be required to submit all the necessary studies to our fire department that cover and demonstrate compliance with the city's methane requirements.
Okay, because
Many other requirements that I'm not
right.
familiar with.
But one thing I was wondering was, there's no containment seal. It's just they're really going to clean it up, correct?
Yeah, I would defer.
Okay, I'd like that answer.
When
Thank
we
you.
talked to the applicant yesterday, there is a plan. We can ask questions of them, but I'm pretty sure it's a proposal for that.
I'd like to know before I vote on it.
Well,
They're here.
again, questions for staff. So we would like the developer to explain the cleanup issue when they come up to speak in the public hearing process. Just to clarify Commissioner Palmer's comment on the 4th story, I looked at the floor plans. And the only thing in that fourth story, just to try to make it look a little more attractive, there's a roof on it. But that's just for the stairwell and the elevator, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Got a question? Yeah, go ahead. In regards to the methane gases, I do know from history and experience that they can be a problem in the future. Is there anything we can do to stipulate for safety purposes that if they don't cap them properly, that ventilation would be required where appropriate? Or is that for somebody in plan check in the fire department to decide?
Yeah, it sounds like you want to be extra careful and maybe impose a condition of approval. That condition is sort of a reminder. I think there's already code requirements that would require that it be capped off properly, and if that wasn't an option, there's another requirement that you need to follow, and our fire department is responsible to confirm that that happens.
Right, because reading the SOMAS report, it's pretty extensive, it's pretty well documented, but it's just, again, I would like to note something for safety as well.
Okay. Actually, I'd like to go back to the rooftop deck. If you look at the bottom right-hand image there, the rendering, visually, you've got about maybe 1/6 of that open space left visually. If these were 3 stories, I would think they would be perfect in a heartbeat. I'd approve them, but that's 4 stories. It's just 4 stories.
Okay, no further questions? Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
We do. We have several people signed up to speak. Please come down and line up behind each podium. Grant Keene, Xavier Glasper, John Mahood, Randolph Jones, Garth Greenbush, and Deborah Klein. Apologies if I mispronounced anybody's name. Please come and form a line behind each podium. Thank you. Please state your name when you begin your comments.
My name is Grant Keene. I'm the applicant developer. If you've got questions, I can address all questions that were brought up and more.
Well, I suppose you should address the capping of the wells and the ventilation system.
Yeah, so just so everybody understands, there's multiple agencies that are involved when you go through this. So the Orange County Health Authority is who manages your question related to methane and soils contamination. We've had a remedial action plan that the Orange County Health Authority outlines exactly what we have to do, which includes removal of the top 5 feet of soil from the entire site, and includes also removal up to 20 feet deep in multiple, as they call them, hot spots. So we have to do that, and we will be doing that. And then to your question related to venting, that is also a city fire standard. So all former wells abandoned previously and current wells have been and will be, the ones that have not been completed yet, vented with a concrete cone vent. All those wells are also tested prior to venting and been confirmed that there's no leaking methane from any of those wells. Regardless, they all have been or will be vented with a concrete cone vent, and those vents will then be routed up through and out through the roofs of the homes per city standard.
I guess my question would be routing those through the house. Are you aware of a detail how they seal that? So is it continuous?
Yeah.
No seams type of thing?
Of course. There's very, very clear standards. You cannot, it's inspected by the fire department prior to closing the walls. It's a critical item that I've had to do previously in downtown Huntington. I've built 30 plus homes here. And I have these 10 plus another 12 in downtown in development.
Anybody else have questions for the developer?
I'm good.
What is the process for when you remove the contaminated soil that has the gas, PCBs, all of that lead, whatever?
Yeah.
What do you do? What happens to it?
It has to go to a contaminated soils facility,
Okay,
and it would be millions of dollars of removal.
okay. Thank you for that answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? If I can address Ms. Palmer at all related to the fourth story, this is something that obviously is within the purviews of the code, and we feel like it would be a great asset to the community to have those rooftop decks into buyers, and adds a lot of value. And I understand your concerns, but it is a critical piece of the project, and it is within the standards of the code. We're not asking for anything that's not absolutely per standard, and that goes for the entire project.
Okay.
Any further questions for the developer? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Please note that you can line up at each podium. Thank you. And please state your name prior to your comment.
Next speaker, please.
Name's John Mahood, 50-year resident of Huntington Beach. Live at 120 18th Street. Had that house for 31 years. It's my retirement home. I'm 71 years old. Been a builder my whole life. I know we need buildings, okay? And I agree with everything that's on this sheet here from the staff that says maximum building height, 35 feet. Well, it takes a variance to get to that 35 foot first, okay? Maximum building height's 30 foot. 35 foot takes it a variance, okay? And then it says 3 stories. I'm on your team because we live on this street. And if you actually know how tall these buildings are gonna be, the only one I could pull offline, okay, I went on everything, okay, and it adds up to being 42 foot 3 tall. Does that sound anything close to 35 feet? No, okay? As staff said, over here, I don't mean to step on you guys, but somebody referred to, well, 1 million units could have been built on that. Well, I'm a builder. Guess what they just pulled off that site? Oil wells. Guess what's underneath them? Oil wells. Guess what you can't do? Dig that ground up and put subterranean parking in it. Won't happen. So that's not apples here. What I'm talking about is this is infill here, okay? Our neighborhood has been developed. It's finished, okay? We've been waiting on this last piece to get done. We actually put up with 3 years of mitigation on this property. These guys, okay, it was 2 years with the oil company pulling wells, and now these people have been there for almost 1.5 years, okay? We understood this to getting done, so we just sat back and waited, okay? And nobody complained. Not one person came and went to code or anything on this. They had their dirt uncovered. Our properties got wiped out on a daily basis, okay? And, you know, that's just not fair, but we went along with it. And we went along with it until we found out what we were getting. And they're asking for a variance to put an elevator to take people to the roof, to block our view. You got to understand that this puts a literal 10-foot high wall, higher than anything else in the neighborhood, 10 feet from everywhere you'll be able to see this. You have to understand our houses are only 6 feet apart in this neighborhood. We live in a land of canyons. You say one thing here, and I swear, my neighbor, I have to go tell him to quit talking to his lawyer. He lives 9 houses from me. Quit talking to his lawyer in the garage because I can hear it. You're going to build taller canyons, block out more sun. You know, I get it. I'm a builder. I want buildings. But I'm with her over there. Take that building off the roof, go the 32 feet that they got for the railing height, and I'm on your team. You know, there's a second thing. with ADUs. That's about parking. Can I carry on here?
Thank you. No.
I
Thank you.
can't, huh?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, somebody.
Randolph Jones, and I purchased my house at 208 18th Street in 2004. I live in a 3-story house that is 32 feet in height. I'm in opposition to the new development between 18th and 19th Street on PCH. These 44-foot monstrosities will literally, I tell you, overshadow our beautiful neighborhood. Hear, hear, Commissioner Palmer, hear, hear. I'm appalled that I even need to be here in this capacity. Would I be given the same variance if I went to the city and petitioned them to increase the height of my house to 43 feet? Hardly. I'd be thrown out of the planning department by the scruff of my neck and the seat of my pants. So why is this variance be given any consideration at all? Clearly, this is the case of greedy large developers who are attempting to make exorbitant profits at the expense of homeowners who have made this quiet neighborhood our home for many, many years. Mr. LaHood, 50 years. In my case, 21 years. I suspect they had significant cost overruns and are trying to get back their inflated profit projections. To conclude, I will quote the great Arabic phrase, no, 1,000 times no. Commissioners, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Garth Greenblatt. I live on 112 18th Street. My purpose here is not to block the construction. I'm expecting very nice houses to be built there someday, but as everybody's telling you, the height is going to be 43 feet. It's going to block everybody behind them. As far as the parking, I don't think everybody's considering it's going to be about 50 more vehicles on the street with 0 extra parking right now before the project. And then as far as the status of the oil wells, I just suggest you drive by and take a look at the mitigation and see how it's going, because it doesn't look like that's getting cleaned up anytime soon. So, I'll give up my time to anybody else that wants to talk for the rest of it, if that's allowed.
Thank you.
Going back to the parking.
Chair, Mr. Dean, if you allow it, he can donate his time to another speaker.
That's fine.
All right.
They're adding 4 ADUs, okay? Anybody that's going to move into one of them ADUs has a car. They're going on not putting parking in because it's within 10 blocks of a bus station. Okay, you're moving 14 homes in here, not 10, 14, into a neighborhood that's built out, that has no parking. We are right across the street from the beach. We are first block of the beach. There is no parking city-wise, just only the meters on the street. Everybody comes to our neighborhood and parks. You're going to throw 14 new homes along with everything else and not make provisions for parking. If you look at the parking on these units, can you show the top-down view on that? You got to look at the lack of parking. Everything's right on the rear. Every house in our neighborhood, every large house has 4 parking on the rear, 4 outside, and then 3 or 4 inside. Some have 5. Every coast highway house has a minimum of like 5 to 9 parking spaces. These guys are sticking ADUs, and look at the parking. You guys are smart. Add it up in your own heads. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Deborah Klein, and I think I'm the only one from the 1900 building. So I own a property, ground level, 1900 Pacific Coast Highway number 9. I've had it since 1998. And I'm a little bit mixed on this project. I think it'll increase my values, and so I'm excited about that. Really don't want to look at an oil well, and don't enjoy the fine dust of the oil coming onto my patio. So in that respect, I'm excited about it. I'm still in the learning process, so I didn't realize about the rooftop deck and the structure. I do have a house in Corona del Mar, and I have a rooftop deck, no structure. Voices do carry. I don't know if Huntington Beach has a Lugo fine. Newport had to create Lugo fines, which is loud and unusual. Anyhow, it's $750 the first time you get called out. So it tends to prohibit people from having big parties. So being that I'm on right next to that building and seeing these rooftop decks, I don't know if Huntington Beach has those, but that would be something you might want to talk to the city council about if you're going to have these buildings go. And let's see, when I did do the original meeting, I think it was early June, when I went to that meeting, I thought there was 4 spots per house. And looking at this, it says 2 to 3 car garages. I was impressed that actually each house had, I thought, 4 spots. I was concerned about the ADUs, though. 4 ADUs, if you're selling a house for $8 million and you're going to rent the ADU, which is what most people will do, we have a burgeoning ADU in my Corona del Mar property, you can get a couple thousand. You can get $5,000, $6,000 a month. You know, if it's an up and coming area, if it's nice. So you're going to probably get a couple. So you're going to get 2 people that work who have cars. They're not taking the bus. I know Newsom passed some crazy thing that if we're a mile away from a bus, you don't have to have parking. But I don't think anyone that's living in a $5,000 or $6,000, 458 square foot property on the beach is taking the bus. So you're going to have 2 cars. So the parking is an issue. I don't know if there's anything they can do about that, if they can add parking spaces somehow. I'd love to see that done, at least 1 per ADU. And again, I'm a little confused because I saw 4 spots when I was at the other meeting, and now it looks like there's maybe 3 spots per house. And I think those are my only real concerns, is the rooftop deck and cutting the noise or parties, having something in place for that, and then figuring out a way to increase the parking. I know you may not have to because of Newsom, but I know Huntington Beach, unlike Newport, pushes back. They don't allow porn in our libraries. They do the right thing. So it just doesn't seem right not to have, I'm a big fan of HB. It doesn't seem right not to have at least 1 parking spot dedicated for the ADUs to unburden the neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Scott
Next-
Campbell, please
next
also come
speaker,
down.
Please.
That's me. My name is Scott Campbell. I'm one of the owners of the office building right across the street at 1720 Pacific Coast Highway. I can 100% tell you that capped wells are infinitely safer than active wells that have been there, 21 of them. I very much welcome this project getting going for that reason. Also, this site has been a nuisance as an oil-producing facility for many years. I mean, call them car campers or whatever you like to call them, but they deposit their feces and urine in the gutter regularly. If you go over there right now, even with them doing work there and chasing some of these people away, you will still vomit if you walk on that sidewalk, okay? This site needs to be redeveloped. It will be fantastic to have beautiful houses there. I have as much or more of a potential view to lose than anybody here talking, and in fact, probably more so. But I would say that whether it's 35 feet high or 43 or whatever it is, all of our existing structures there are up to 35 feet, okay? If your balcony's at 35 feet and the other building that they're building is 35 feet, whether it's 35 or 43, it doesn't matter. There's going to be no view for these people. There's going to be no view for if I have a 35-foot third floor that I build there, I'm not going to be able to see over 35 feet. That's level. That's it. That's all we get, okay? So I don't know that it really matters unless there's people here that were planning to build a 4th floor on top of their existing 3rd floor. Then maybe they've got something to worry about. I would get that, okay? And look, I know I'm going to lose a view. I know other people are going to lose a view. But that view is borrowed. I've been borrowing that view, and I really appreciate that I had the opportunity to borrow that view. But I never owned it. I did not have any of that granted to me as part of my grant deed when I bought the property. And everybody around there, it's the same thing. They have no legal title to that borrowed view. Yes, I'm going to lose some view. They're going to lose some view. Whether the council decides to let this project be 35 feet or 43 feet, it's the same thing. But you guys will have to decide. That's why you're here. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name is Xavier Glasper. I live at 111 18th Street, and I am the parcel that's taking the brunt of the 3.5 years of the construction that's there, from the oil to the dust to the dirt. I can't tell you how much it's cost in that 3.5 years. I'd like to rebut what the gentleman offered. If it's 35 and 35 or whatever that number is, then we'd be at the same height. Once you go above that, as we spoke before, then now you're dipping into what sunlight might get there and a bunch of other things. I'm an engineer by trade. I sold my company, which is what brought me here, and I bought that house in 2019. I was happy to be able to have that. I also agree with the gentleman that it's a borrowed view. As an engineer, I understand that we're going to do development. We're going to continue to expand and do things. But as Madam Commissioner said, it seems like we're just getting bigger and bigger. And the more we lean toward bigger and bigger, then before you know it, the new standard is already out of standard. And then you continue to go from there. From our last meeting in early June, I thought, you know, what kind of engineer am I if I'm protesting the development? And I wanted to just let you guys know it's not the protesting of the development. We're trying to have a space in place. I've had neighbors to welcome me into the neighborhood. It's a beautiful spot and a beautiful place. And then I started thinking, then what's the goal here, right? Is the goal for them to make our neighborhood beautiful? I hope that's it. And in doing so, I was hoping that the developer would just be neighborly, if you will. And again, as I told you before, I don't even bother to clean the windows in my house anymore. I don't bother to try to clean the glass anymore. I don't go out on the patio anymore. That's 3.5 years, and we haven't started the construction yet. As someone said earlier, and what I'll close with is this, I'm sure that they're intending to do a great job. But as I looked into WJK development, I was looking at Mr. Keen's profile, and here's what I gleaned from his message. What he has done is he has refined his team of preferred industry professionals so as to maintain industry-leading returns. This isn't about being neighborly. This isn't about making our neighborhood a little bit more beautiful. This is about what other gentlemen have spoken to. They are trying to get every piece of profit that they can get out of this at the neighborhood's expense. And I would just ask for your consideration as you look and make your findings. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
We have no further speakers signed up.
Okay, well, with that, we'll close the public hearing. Yeah, and planning commissioners, we will now deliberate the item, and I believe you can ask questions as well. We can do whatever we want. Okay, let's deliberate. Can we start on my right? You good?
I'd just like to know, is Mr. Keen correct?
Yes.
I'm just curious, hearing what the complaints are and the neighbors and wanting to be a good neighbor, is it appropriate for him to be able to address any of those right now?
If it's a question you have, you can ask the applicant, yes.
Most specifically, we can't deal with the height issue. I mean, it is what is approved per the zoning code, and it sounds like you met all of that through the design. As far as the other mitigating issues with how you guys are going to capture dust particles in the air, you know, what your mitigation plan is going forward for their benefit, not ours.
Yeah, and to address that, our project manager, Mr. James Heiston, I'd actually brought up that I believe Xavier, I forgot his last name, apologies. He had approached my project manager and brought it up, and we had actually provided window cleaning services for Xavier's neighbor, immediately adjacent neighbor, because he had come directly to us and said, hey, look, I'm having issues with dust. And we said, no problem. We cleaned his windows. We did whatever he asked for. And I believe Mr. Heisen actually had said, look, we're happy to provide that for you. And if that's not true, okay, so we can have Mr. Heisen confirm that or deny that. But his neighbor had requested it. We provided it. No questions asked. Can I address any of the other comments related to variances, which there are no variances in this, et cetera?
I think we'd have to do that. I don't have any questions in that regard, so not for me.
And parking, if you have questions, I can address that as well.
I actually had a question about parking. Can you just kind of cover it again? Because it sounds, what I'm hearing from the residents is not what I believe I heard from you when we met.
Yeah, so nothing changed from what our conversation was. We're providing parking per code. If you look at this aerial here, the site plan, you'll see that we're providing 4 parking spots for the residents that are required to have 4 parking spots. We're providing 3 parking spots for the residents that are required 3 parking spots, which are lots 2 and 9. And we're providing 2 plus off-site, which is part of the code for lots 1 through 9. And in addition, this is something that, I don't know if the residents knew this, but we actually do have parking on lots 1, 2, 9, and 10 for 2 additional spots per home. We actually do have a 20-foot setback from alley to the face of the garage, but we were not able to actually call them formal parking spots because of the turn radius. So I don't know if you've got any visuals of lots 1 or 10 that can show that we actually do have a 20-foot setback, but we just couldn't call them parking spots. So we are staying within code parameters for every single house for the required parking, but we're actually providing 8 parking spots more. They're just not considered formal spots because of the radius turn, though they are actually deeper than a standard space. We are actually providing a 20-foot space, code standard's 19 feet.
Okay, so you're saying because of the narrowness of the alley, is that what you're saying, the radius of the turn?
Wayne could give you more
I can try to
specifics.
explain it. If you look at lots 1 and 10, which are the bookends, as well as the second lot in from both streets, those plans require a 2-car garage. Lots 2 and 9, second one in, require 3. So what you see here in terms of the bolded, what's shown here as vehicles, the 4 that are really bolded, as well as the ones that are kind of shadowed. You have 2 on the ends. You have 3, which is a 2-car garage, and 1 that's parallel. You see all those. So those stalls that are depicted here are what's required by our code. For all intents and purposes, because the alley width is not 25 feet for a turning radius into a legitimate parking stall, whether it's a garage or an open stall, we can't count it. So if you look at this site plan here, if you can see my cursor here in lot 10, way on the left here, this area here could essentially park 2 cars in front of the garage door, which is here. Can you see that cursor?
Yeah, because it's 20. It's 20 feet, right?
Here. It's 20 feet here, so they could park 2 cars, and that's probably what will happen, but we can't count 2 additional spaces.
And similarly, lot 1 has the same setback, correct?
Correct. And lots 2 and 9, where they have a parallel space depicted, they'd probably park 2 perpendicular or right up against the garage door.
Can you tell me about lot 8? Is that the 2 cars that appear to be, I don't know if you would call it a driveway, so that lot 8 actually has 4 spots without counting, a car perpendicular?
That's correct. That's correct. So they will have 4 spots there on lot 8. But I hope I clarified that. And again, it's all based on the requirement that a stall needs a 25-foot turning radius into it.
Okay, any more questions for the applicant?
Okay, I have a question about the aerosolized soil that's going around in the area. That's a concern for me, and I'm surprised that there isn't, barriers that are there that would contain the contaminated soil that seems to be spreading to the surrounding. It's covered. Then how do they get their windows all dirty?
It's been covered in standard operations. It may move, but the stockpile's covered and been covered, and it was addressed formally by our team. So it has been covered, and it will continue to be covered until it's formally removed with the remedial action plan per the Orange County Health Authority.
But that didn't answer my question. My question was, then how do the windows get so dirty with soil?
If there's construction activities on the site and the stockpile, that's what we're required to cover. We can't control dirt if you're, moving, if you're moving dirt through the site. It can't be controlled at all times. We did our best. We keep it watered as it's been, which is also a standard. But you can control what you can control, which is including covering the stockpile, which we've done, watering the site while operations are going. And that's all per Orange County Health Authority. It's all per local code standards. We've been adhering to those standards.
So who does the enforcement to make sure things are followed through?
City of Huntington Beach.
Not the Orange County Health Care Authority?
Orange County Health Care Authority is the formal governing board that will follow through our remedial action plan, which has not been completed until we get to that permit phase, which is the removal of all the dirt.
I understand that, but in the meantime, it's going.
No, in the meantime, it's covered, and any operations on the site is watered, and any enforcement action would be covered by City of Huntington Beach.
Staff, how often does that happen? Never? Did I hear that? Oh, from the audience. How often?
They got cited by code enforcement.
I'm going to really have to ask everybody to stop speaking.
Please, no comments.
We
No-
had public comments at this
No
point.
comments from the audience, please.
All right.
Commissioner Paramount, dust control from a site is usually controlled by either BMPs on site, which is, as the applicant indicated, either keeping things wetted down or covering stockpiles and so forth. But legally, if there's dust coming from the site, they can call AQMD. There should be a number that they can call for that.
But my original question was, how often is it monitored and the remediation? I still don't have an answer
I don't
for
think
that.
there's a procedure where people go out like on a regular basis and monitor it. It's more like per complaint. If there's dust complaints, then inspectors go out. That particular site does have a remediation permit, which shows, where they're stockpiling and doing, their operations. And it talks about the BMPs that I spoke about, which talks about them having to, cover the pile and, keep things watered down.
It's a
But as far as
healthcare
that-
issue, so I would hope that you do more. I was hoping for an answer that basically says, we go out there, we monitor it and whatever, because that's part of, the process. But I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that there's these rules in place or codes,
Yeah.
and you're
Just like a noise ordinance, I don't think anybody ever goes out and measures it, like a AC unit that somebody complains about being too close to a side yard. I think they go out and measure it, like if they get a complaint, they have devices and so forth. It's the same kind of thing as far as dust control goes. And like the applicant said, they can always offer to clean up and wash windows, and I've seen, washing homes too.
But that really doesn't answer my question. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Any more questions
Yes.
for the applicant?
I do have a question. You said that you could explain to me about the appropriate zoning code that allows for what looks like a quarter to a third of the mass of the footprint of the deck to actually be structure. And maybe this is a question for the city. If you can give me at least the codes, I can look it up, but I have a grave concern that we have a four-story.
Yeah, just to be clear, that's not a variance. That we're not requesting any variances for this project. That's a code section, and Wayne can provide the specific code section to you.
Yeah, so you mentioned a large percentage of the footprint is now covered by the fourth story, as you call it. This is, again, looking from the front or PCH, the width of that structure, yes, is, and each of the plan types are different. I only pulled up the ones that are on the corners here and 18th.
Well, I'm
and-
specifically speaking to the one on the bottom right as an example, or the one on the top
so
right.
these are the same units. They're just a reverse, one's on 18th
Visually,
Street.
it looks very much like 7/8 of that
I understand. but
deck is
My point
mass.
is, this width here, and here's the depth of the whole structure. So here's the stairway, and my guess, just looking at this elevation, is your stairs will come up here and come up this way. So you have a door here, there's probably an elevator in here. So this is the allowable projection that's in our code. It's in section 230 of our zoning code that allows for certain projections. And it also references what the height of a parapet might be. So this section here, again, is allowed by code. It does not require a variance of any sort. Yes, it does exceed the height that is stipulated in District 4 for the majority of the home, but like any other, elevators, there's cupolas, there's different architectural elements that could project. And again, it's covered in our chapter 230. So this plan here, again, it's the same plan, it's just a reverse, has the width of the, sometimes we call them the doghouse. It's what's popped up on the rooftop deck. And that's what's seen here. On plan 2, plan 3, it's probably half, or maybe even less. I think there's one that's a little longer, but just squeezed up. So I don't have all of the elevations here on the slideshow, unfortunately, but I just wanted to clarify that that's this portion here. Yes, front. If you're standing at this height on PCH, looking straight down the unit, you will see that yes, it's wider. But if you're on 18th Street, looking from the real estate office across the street, this is the elevation you'd see right here.
Okay. So my comment has a lot to do with the character of our city. And again, for all intents and purposes, if you drive through, that's a 4-story building. So it can be narrow in some places, or it looks like an ADU to me. You can call it a doghouse, but doghouses are a lot lower than that. Dollhouse, okay, well, that's bigger than a doll. Anyway, to me, it is clearly a 4-story, and there's clearly mass there, and it's clearly out of character with the neighborhood, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, any more questions for the applicant?
Yeah, it's my turn. Do you know what we're going to call that dollhouse in the building code? I'm wondering, based on the height, is there 2 paths of travel that are required for exiting purposes for emergency? Is the stairway required? If the elevator's there, is the stairway still required? Which would probably, because it's exempt, it's not an additional story in the zoning code, it's exempt, right? So, but going beyond that, it seems to me that the building code may require a walk path down or an emergency exit. Do we know that, or is that beyond our purview here?
I'm not sure what the answer to that question is. Our building division did review this, reviewed the preliminary plans. There was no comment as to whether, if they didn't have a stairway, if that would comply. So they are proposing both, and that's the reason why there was probably no comment from our building division.
Does the applicant know?
Yeah, I'd like to add that there's a project that's currently in framing right now on PCH that is almost identical to these. They had an approved, it's actually, the term is actually doghouse. That's not dollhouse, but it's doghouse, but it is, I know there was, I heard everybody trying to figure that out there, but yeah, so it was approved. That was part of what we based our assumptions off of, is a lot of what I had back and forth when I was going through both with planning staff and our other building comments. So there is an approved project in terms of character. It will be in alignment with that, and this is all per code. And as a builder, you know, I'm up here and I'm expected to have a set of codes that I go by. And the comments I'm hearing is basically, well, you know, you don't like the codes, those have to be changed. This is what I was given. I'm building exactly to code. Simple. So I don't understand how there's a question at all related to that.
So my question would be back to staff. Is what the applicant said is accurate the way he's portrayed it?
As far as complying with code? Yes, there are no requests for any deviations to our zoning code from that standpoint. So again, we're here because the property is within the coastal zone, which requires a coastal development permit. There's no conditional use permit, no variances as part of this request. If this was outside of the coastal zone, it would have just gone through plan check.
The other question I would have is are there additional projects, as he stated, that are similar with the same types of issues that have already been approved and are already in construction?
Yes, I'm not sure which project he's referring to, but yes, I mean, again, there are many that have come through plan check that don't need to come before any decision-making body, and they have these dog houses that comply with code.
Thank you for the clarification on the dog houses.
I have one more. On the sheet that you passed out earlier, item D, regardless of whether it fits with the zoning code, in Huntington Beach, I believe that we want to ensure that single-family residences are of compatible proportion, scale, and character to surrounding neighborhoods. So the fact that one project has a big fat doghouse on the top, we've noticed downtown where it was 3 stories, they put a rooftop, and then they put a structure on the rooftop, and now it looks like 5 stories. But I think it's not just code, it is really building to the character, and certainly you're building beautiful new residences, and we're all happy to see that. But this is a street where people pass by daily through Huntington Beach, and we just really don't want a wall of 4-story houses when the idea is 3-story houses. Thank you.
You know, the last point to address on that, and I don't know if there's a way to depict it from a street scene, but from a street scene, if you're driving, I don't know if you'd even pick that up.
Yeah, 6 feet apart, that's a wall.
Actually, this is
Please.
This is a, if I could add, this is a rendering that was part of the submittal, which actually happens to show the front elevation. I know it's kind of shaded here, but if you look at the projections that we were talking about, can you see this right here on the right? This actually happens to be the title sheet, but it does show the PCH elevation. So the 2 that you saw earlier was lot 10 here and lot 1 here way on the right. So this is lot plan 2, and then here's plan 3, which has, less than 50% of the width. But if you looked at the side elevation, it's much longer because of the stairway and the elevator. So there is a difference in all of the different floor plans.
Yeah, I've got one more question for staff. Per code, you could actually cover the entire rooftop with a rooftop deck, couldn't you? That would still...
The open deck, yeah,
Yeah, the
provided you
open
comply
deck
with
could
the
just cover
maximum
the
building
whole...
height, yes.
Yeah, and they didn't do that. Yeah, it's only a small portion of the roof. Yeah. Okay, any more questions?
I just want to be clear, right? So this meets all codes, right?
That's correct.
There's no variances. And it's, in my opinion, fairly consistent with the neighborhood. Nothing further.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anybody have any comments, not questions? Yep.
Yeah, I've got a comment. With the specific development that we're dealing with right now, I keep hearing the word greedy developer from people out here, and I'm thinking he could have been even more greedy, a lot more greedy. I actually like the designs here, and I actually like the deck also. I think it's a good use of space. Yeah, I just think, and we've already addressed the parking, so I kind of like it.
I'm going to make a comment.
Thank you. Bush? Commissioner Bush?
I guess the only real issue is that, like the other commissioner stated, just making sure we're doing things safely. And again, once we have this, I'd like to compliment the design because it could have been up to 27 units, and we could have been digging a subterranean garage, and we could have a bigger parking issue than the one that everybody's projecting. Everywhere in Southern California has a parking problem, everywhere in Southern California. In every city, they have mitigation issues and plans. I think this could have been a lot more impactful parking-wise and traffic-wise. I think this is the best use. It's going to look beautiful. And I just like the design, and I'd like to compliment the thoroughness to the project, both by staff and by the owner. And I hope that you're able to resolve the issues with the neighbors and be a good neighbor for them going forward.
Okay, yeah, I second that. I realize that the specific plan allows construction of 27 units. I think that would be a greater impact to the neighborhood. I looked at the ADU. I personally don't see somebody purchasing a $7 million house and having to rent it out. I see that as a casita for your relatives when they visit, and that's what I do with my desert casita. I don't rent it out. And I looked at the parking spaces. No offense to staff, but I have my staff, I own an engineering firm, and I have my staff review all the code issues. And while I don't like this accessory stairway pop-up exception to the code, it is in the code, and it is allowed to have that pop out on the roof. It's part of the code. I've actually talked to Mayor Burns a few times about maybe changing that part of the code. The parking spaces do fit code. The ADU, I'm not a fan of that, but it is part of the code. And looking at the site plan, you can really park cars perpendicular to the garage door. And I'm in favor of the project because it meets all of our codes, and that we have generous building codes here, and it complies.
And I guess I would just kind of go along with that, right? I'd hate to see 27 units and, sit there. They would be out of place at that point. These fit more into the neighborhood than, some kind of high-density development, which I think for the neighbors would be much more problematic and troublesome. So I like the project. I think it's well done and well thought out. You know, sympathetic, obviously, to people that have to live next to construction. I'm currently in that situation myself. But I think the alternative, again, with high-density, you know, residents, I don't think any of the current residents would be very happy with that either, so.
Commissioner Palmer?
Okay. Okay, so I never said anything about a greedy developer. I think that was purely some public comment, but I think the developer did a great job. I think we've been waiting for this project. I think it's terrific, but I do believe that it is out of character to have structures on the deck, whether or not it's within code. It is not in character with the neighborhood. I would prefer to see the elevator up to the third floor and stairway up to the deck. That's what they do in our neighborhood. So at any rate, again, of course we don't want 27 units. We've been waiting for this. It's a lovely development, but I would have preferred to see just a little more concern to the character of Huntington Beach as it exists now. Thank you.
Commissioner Pellman?
I have to make a comment on codes. Codes are guidelines, right? How you build something. Guess what? Guidelines change, so do codes. And so I happen to agree with Commissioner Palmer, and I also am concerned about the aerosolization of the soil into the air affecting the project. And it's already been, I don't know if I'm repeating this correctly, but I thought I heard public comment say it's been like 3 years, something like that. And that's not okay. And I'm disappointed that I couldn't get a straight answer from staff that there has been, looking for, compliance in the codes. And maybe the code needs to change to make sure that there is compliance. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Do we need one more round?
I think we need a motion.
Okay,
I move to approve the project.
I'll second that.
Okay, do we have a vote, please?
See how she does.
Commissioner McGee?
Yay.
Okay. Vice Chair Bush?
Yes.
Okay, Chair Thenis?
Yes.
Commissioner Babineau?
Aye.
Commissioner Palmer? No. Commissioner Pellman?
No.
Okay, we have 4 ayes, 2 noes, motion carries.
4-2.
The Planning Commission's action on this item is final unless an appeal is filed to the City Council within 10 working days. An appeal must include the reasons for the appeal, the required fee, and shall be filed with the City Clerk's office.
Okay, next on the agenda is the consent calendar, and there are 2 sets of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
I'd like to make a motion.
Second, please.
I'll second.
We have a vote, please.
McGee?
Yes.
Bush?
Yes.
Thenis?
Yes.
Babineau?
Aye.
Palmer? Aye. Pellman?
Abstain. I was not present at that meeting.
Okay.
I was out of the
We
country.
have 5 ayes, 1 abstention, motion carries.
Okay, there are no more public hearing items, so next on the agenda are our planning items. Staff, can we have a report, please?
Yeah, currently we don't have any items slated for the July 22nd meeting, so we anticipate that we'll be canceling that meeting.
Okay.
Chair, may I add one more announcement? As the commission recognizes there is a vacant seat, the commissioner that was appointed by Councilmember Gruhl did decline his appointment, so we will wait for Councilmember Gruhl to make another appointment at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Could I also make a comment? Didn't we have a second set of minutes? Just trying to do catch up here.
Yeah, I said it's 2 sets of minutes.
No, well, no, you have to do them individually.
Oh, okay. All right, with the second set of minutes, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve them.
I'll second it again.
Can we have a vote, please?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Aye. Yeah.
We have all ayes.
And just for clarification, Chair Dennis, the reason why there had to be 2 votes is I abstained on the first one.
Oh, you're right. Ah, my bad.
Okay. Trying to keep us honest here.
Very
Thank you.
good, thank you. Okay, before we close for the evening, planning commissioners, do you have any comments to provide? We'll start on my right.
No.
No.
No comments tonight.
No comments.
No further comments.
Well, I have a comment. I just wanted to thank the commissioners tonight for all your comments. I really appreciated them. Although we may have differences, thank you.
Well, the methane issue is a real issue.
Oh, trust me, it's when I lived up in Seacliff, the reason why we moved was because I got headaches. I got sick, and my husband was never affected by it. I don't know why I was, but that's why I'm concerned about that project.
So I'm wondering from the legal standpoint, how do we do tonight? Did we do okay? Any input for us?
Generally did pretty good. If you are going to give handouts to other commissioners, please give the staff beforehand so they can distribute online.
I forgot about
But it is a municipal code, or zoning code, so it is available, so we're okay there. But just in general,
I gave it to them and I should have gave it to you. My bad.
totally fine. More my concern is just so they can publish it later for the
Well,
public
it
and
was
stuff.
just, it was just for the point of clarification so that we're not up here winging it, coming up with our own ideas. General provisions generally blanket everything. It's usually an umbrella. You know, it's more of an I thought so, but I'm not the man, so.
Is that a misdemeanor?
Are we on?
Yeah,
Are we recording right now?
Yeah,
I'll wait
let's
till we're done
hold
recording.
on. Okay. All right, that's the last item on the agenda. We hereby adjourn to our next planning commission meeting on Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. This meeting is adjourned.